Yeah, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Views on the News.
Clergy
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
and the same applies to the Carry bread.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys?
I can barely tell you how nice it is to convene the gang again. And our panelists today are regulars. Guy Otten from Manchester. How the devil are you, Guy?
The devil is not delivering the heat we need at this time of the year.
Yeah, well, that's Manchester for you, I'm afraid. Yes. And David Orenstein, how the devil are you, David?
The devil is treating me well.
Good. Dread Pirate Higgs from British Columbia.
The
How are you?
devil is alive and well.
And Paul Clark, who's not a million miles away from me, a fellow Englishman. How the devil are
Hello
you?
there. Hi, everybody. Hiya.
Hello.
Great. Well, it's nice to have you back in the saddle. So, starting with news item number one, you may remember that one of our favorite YouTubers, I don't know that he's a YouTuber, but he appears in small video clips sometimes and long shows as well, Mossab Hassan Youssef. He's the son of one of the founders, there were two, of Hamas, but he's left and he's now very anti their existence, really. And so he is speaking against Hamas time and time again. And here is his latest effort at that. Watch this.
There was no Palestine. And this is the truth that we need to bring to people. Because what people don't realize, false narrative eventually lead to violence. All these allegations of genocide, of ethnic cleansing, of colonialism, of occupation, this what brought us here. This is what has been creating the victim mindset, the victim narrative that is entitled for revenge. And the more we empower this narrative, this falsehood, the more there's going to be violence, because now we see how angry the people, everybody is projecting their anger on the situation, and I and my children and my brothers back home, everybody has to pay the price on behalf of their angry cause. And we are not willing to do this. We are not Palestinians. We are Arabs. This is our ethnicity. Palestinian identity is a made-up thing. Does not represent us, and we are tired of it, and we don't want it. Hamas are invaders. This is the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. They invaded our territory. They changed everything by the means of intimidation, the same way that they have been intimidating your campus and your administration, the same way they intimidate the people in the Middle East. And if you submit to them once, show them weakness once, then they are going to come back stronger and stronger. This is their strategy. So basically, we are not Palestinians. Palestine, this is not our business, not even an Arab term. It represents colonialism. And in principle, we don't have a problem with the Jewish people. We don't have a problem coexisting with the Jewish people.
Well, what do you think of that, guys?
Yes, indeed.
I have misgivings. And the reason why I have misgivings is I go with the view that a nation is an imagined community. And if a group of people imagine themselves to be a nation, they are a nation.
Yeah.
So if the Scots imagine themselves to be British, they're British. If they stop imagining themselves to be British, they stop being British. And the Palestinian identity, I think, has been created by the existence of Israel and the shared experience of the Palestinians, as they see it, as dispossession by the Israelis.
Yes, I think that's right. I agree with that. I think that we look at Pakistan as well. These are places that were created, and then people start identifying as that thing, and I think that's happened in Palestine as well as one or two other places around the world.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So his point is that historically, there was never really a Palestine. It was the Ottoman Empire. It was the British, what do they call it? The
Mandate.
Mandate. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. And really, this is a name that's been foisted on them. It hasn't sort of emerged from a native population.
Yeah, you can't go to someone who identifies as Palestinian and say, no, you're not really Palestinian. It doesn't work.
No.
They see themselves as Palestinian, therefore they are Palestinian.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But isn't there a bit of a logical fallacy in there, whereby, you know, some people identify as Palestinian? Doesn't mean everyone does. You know what I mean? It'd be like saying, well, they're Palestinian or a Palestinian nation by virtue of 51% of them having said, we want to represent as a nation of Palestinians. There's a logical fallacy in there.
Well, I think the issue is sort of one of, ultimately, it's one of autonomy, right? Because that's what either personal belief in who you are, or whether you believe as a community you are something. You're really talking about individual or statewide autonomy. And we know that borders change all the time. The issue, I think, is one of not so much the individual Palestinians and the individual Israelis who are living in this hotbed, because I think for the most part, they want to get along. It's their governments that are stopping this, whether it's Hamas as a known terrorist organization or the Netanyahu government. They're equally at an end to, in some way, profit either economically or politically by keeping the violence going. And so
Now, can I come in here, because
that's what we have to get beyond.
Yeah, I love what you guys have been saying, but I'm coming from a science teacher, biology in particular background, and we have a similar situation in taxonomy, you know, because all of the groups in taxonomy are made up, like nations are. Nature doesn't do boxes, but we want to put boxes over nature to make it easier for us to talk about. And there are two schools of thought in taxonomy. We call them the lumpers and the splitters. And the splitters look at different species and see lots of differences and make lots of small groups. Whereas the lumpers look at the same species, see lots of similarities, and put them in a big group of some differences. Now, where I'm coming from is I want a world nation. So if I declare myself to be a member of Worldistan, can I do that? I don't want factions. I just don't want factions. We are a species.
I think where I agree with what he was saying is the other Arab nations have refused to absorb the Palestinians. Like, these people are called Palestinian refugees. Well, their grandparents were refugees, but they're not refugees. You know, they were born in Syria or Iraq or Lebanon or Egypt or wherever. And these Arab nations should absorb them, give them citizenship. But they don't, for political reasons, to keep the hate alive, basically.
Yeah. So what we don't want is hate. You have to be taught to hate. Babies are not born with hate. They have to be taught that you're different from them and they're the worst ones.
And when policies are based on ideology, that's a problem right there, right?
Yeah.
You know, and for, you know, people in Canada and the United States and Britain who are not even religious, maybe gay or whatever, you know, jumping in on this war of ideologies is insane. About it. And you know, why don't we move towards politics and away from ideology? That would probably bring a better solution than what's going on here, because it's not going to resolve it.
Absolutely. And the trouble with the way governments are elected at the moment is it's in the interests of the rulers to divide us and form a group of supporters. It's not in their interest to unite us. So
yeah, that's what I was saying, that there's either a political or an economic reality at 1,000 feet that we're not seeing.
Exactly.
That keeps the divisiveness going, aside from the idea of, oh, you're a different ethnicity than I am and so on. You know, if you look back, there are times when where Arabs and Jews and Arabs and Christians and Jews got along wonderfully. It was it's only in times of severe disruption like what's going on now. And you can say it's because of religion, which sometimes it is, but it's also about land and resources, and to John, to your point, to not sharing the space that ought to be shared. Yeah,
absolutely. So on that subject, Syria, it's recently been taken over by HTS, and the previous non-democratic, the dictatorship, Bassad, has been deposed, and HTS, despite being originally having a jihadist past and being an Al-Qaeda affiliate, they're trying to claim that they are different and that they will respect the rights and freedoms of religious and ethnic minorities. And of course, there are a lot, because Syria is a multicultural country. So it used to be controlled by the Alawites, a sect of Islam, and it was predominantly Sunni for 50 years under Bashar Assad's rule. But now the community fears reprisals by this new invader, in a sense. And one Syrian woman was stopped at a checkpoint in Damascus and told by Islamist rebels that women are no longer allowed to leave the house without a male guardian, and that the hijab is now mandatory. So despite their protestations, which you may remember the Taliban also said a few years ago, we're not like we used to be, it does look to me as though possibly Syria is becoming Afghanistan 2.0.
Right. Well, there's that great Who song. The end line is, "Here comes the new boss, same as the old boss."
Right.
Can you check what's happening downstairs? There's smoke, please. Yes, sorry, I had to check. There's smoke happening. I don't know what's going on in the kitchen. So, yeah.
Well,
it might be some of the people watching this broadcast. You better be careful.
Well, the only time I know that my food is cooked is when the smoke alarm goes off.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's when I know my wife is cooking.
Ooh. There's a man who knows his wife doesn't watch.
She's not in earshot, is she?
David, I forgot to tell you, this is live. I'm not recording.
Well, it looks like I won't be for much longer.
Maybe not. Yeah. Anyway, we could visit your neck of the woods, David, because as you are well aware, in New Orleans on New Year's Day, there was a deadly attack.
Yes.
By a guy called Shamsuddin Jabbar. And according to the FBI, he scoped out New Orleans, the street where he was planning to attack, wearing Meta smart glasses to record the venue, as it were. And so 14 people were killed, and 35 more were injured when he drove a pickup truck at revelers in the French Quarter. And they say, the FBI says this was inspired by the Islamic State group.
Yes.
So comment on that.
We've all in our own nations have seen the dramatic increase in terrorist attacks based on radical religious philosophy. This is no different. Hate being what it is just abhorrent. This person was radicalized. I think he was originally from the United States, even, and if I remember correctly, he's a doctor, right? Was that if I'm thinking of the right person?
Yeah.
So he's not like, oh, he came here and he emigrated. He was born and raised here, and then something happened along the way. And I understand that he wasn't, mentally all there to begin with or something. He had strange behaviors. So here's somebody who radicalizes based on not only Google Glasses but the internet, and takes it upon himself to claim jihad, assuming that he's not working with anybody. The government said that he acted alone. I don't know if that's true or they're just trying to keep it down to a minimum. But it's disgusting. And as Christopher Hitchens said, religion poisons everything.
Yep.
And we see that time and time and time again. Not that there aren't people of good faith and of goodwill, but the people who really want to do horrible things will do it in the name of religion quite easily, as we saw in New Orleans.
It does seem to ramp up their emotional intention.
Sure.
It?
Yeah. This idea of, as Paul was saying earlier, I think about victimhood. But when you base your philosophy, especially your religious philosophy, on revenge, the reality is that everyone becomes the victim to your potential action of revenge.
And if you think you're justified because you're doing it for God, then there's no barriers.
The guardrails are gone, right? The guardrails are gone. If you're going to do something out of belief that your God is going to approve of your actions, anything is possible, right? Take away a woman's right to choose, right?
Yep.
Take away a woman's right to walk down the street unencumbered. There's a million different things, right?
That's right. You can say it's not me doing this. These are God's rules.
Right. And it's telling me who I can love, who I can be intimate with, who I can walk down the street with. It's just, the typical 14th century, 12th century thinking that doesn't belong in the 21st century, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but
it doesn't mean we can't remember it, understand it, study it, but we don't have to live it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, these attacks are routine and regular, unfortunately, now, somewhere or other. And we're getting used to it. And that's a bad thing.
That's a very bad thing.
The reality is that there is a huge pool of Muslims in our society, many of whom lead a quite normal, peaceful life. But there's always a reservoir from which these attackers come, who are radicalized, who start taking their religion seriously and actually reading what the Quran says. And they quickly get encouragement to regard non-believers as sort of second-class animals that can be disposed of,
right?
And also and people who can be killed and should be killed,
right?
And so they have all the guidance and encouragement from sacred texts. And as you say,
well, on that subject, you're going to like this bit of news, guys, because Canyon Independent School District Superintendent Daryl Flush. This is in a Texas school district. He announced in an email leaked earlier this week that under House Bill 900, which was passed by the Texas legislature in 2023, protecting schools from sexually explicit or vulgar content, the Holy Bible is unsuitable.
Yes.
The expression "hoist by their own petard" comes to mind, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
It has to be removed from school libraries.
Well, presumably the Quran would fall into that category as well.
Yeah.
I don't think
for sure.
probably never got its way into school libraries in Texas.
But do not take out the Karma Sutra, please.
Very good.
I thought you'd like that. We've got another little item of good news too, because in this country, the National Secular Society has welcomed an unequivocal statement from the government that it will not introduce blasphemy laws. Now, the background to this is we abolished blasphemy laws in England and Wales distressingly late.
Yeah, how long ago?
2008.
I can remember the last prosecution. Can you remember the last prosecution?
Yeah.
Yes, it was,
Which was in the 70s.
Yeah, 1970s. That's right.
Oh,
it was a woman, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was Gay News, wasn't it? Was prosecuted for a poem in which a Roman centurion fantasized about having sex with Jesus. And Mary Whitehouse prosecuted them.
Yes.
I can't remember if she won or not.
Well, anyway, to our shame, we waited until 2008 before we stopped banning blasphemy. I think it should be more than legalized. I think it should be encouraged.
Compulsory.
But the trouble is we've got these sort of hate speech laws now, which
yes,
kind of amount to something rather similar and are being differentially applied. And so we've still got a big battle on our hands in this country.
That's right.
Well, hate speech. I mean, you could ban the Quran and the Old Testament for hate speech, couldn't you?
Oh well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially
as long as you don't threaten any individual person. That's right. Yeah. So the reason that this has come up as news now is because back in, was it November? Yeah, a Labour MP during Prime Minister's questions called upon the Prime Minister to prohibit the desecration of religious texts and figures. This is Tahir Ali, who's Member of Parliament for Birmingham Green and Moseley. So he wanted Keir Starmer to commit to introducing measures to prohibit the desecration of all religious texts and the prophets of Abrahamic religions. Shamefully, in response, Starmer said he would tackle Islamophobia in all its forms, describing desecration as awful and urging it to be condemned across the House. But there was a hue and cry, and fortunately, we've prevailed. And so the government has, following a campaign, the government has now come up with a statement which says, it's essential we end hate and violence targeting particular communities, but restricting free speech around religion can never be a legitimate or effective means of doing this.
Right.
Freedom to idea, religious or not, is a right which must be protected for people from all communities. So,
that's where I stand. That's where we're going to court. So
it is extraordinary, though, isn't it, that the MP argued for protection just for the Abraham.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about the Sikhs? What about the Hindus? What about the Jains?
Yes.
Rastafarians.
And pagans.
Rastafarians.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. So this is just underlining the divisiveness of religion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let alone those of no faith.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, staying in the UK, we've got wonderful disruption in the Anglican Church, of course, because there was historically now a priest a C of E priest at the center of sexual abuse back in, when was it?
Well, it's been going on for decades, isn't it?
Yeah, but this particular
character,
David Tudor,
yeah,
was caught out back in, I don't know, the early part of this century, I think, when he compensated a woman with payment because she accused him of abusing her as a child. Now, this was brushed aside by the hierarchy of the Anglican Church at the time, but it's coming out again now because there's been a report on concealment, I suppose, and as a result of which the Archbishop of Canterbury has had to go. He's now ex-Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, gone. But the guy who's temporarily stepping into his shoes, Stephen Cottrell, currently Archbishop of York, is also implicated because he was the Bishop of, when was he? The Bishop in Essex, Bishop of Chelmsford, when this abusive priest was being reappointed to his post after he was exposed as an abuser of children. So the Archbishop of York is being called upon to resign as well. And so that's the top and the runner-up who are under, well, one's gone and the other one's under threat of going. And so I don't know where it's going to end up. But it's good news.
I hope it ends up with the disestablishment of the church.
Well, that would be
Wouldn't
good.
that be great? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they deserve it. They deserve it anyway, but they deserve it because of this, don't they?
They do.
That it's just constant in so many churches that priests are reappointed or sent somewhere else or sent somewhere in Africa.
Yeah.
And they're known to be abusers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
Anglicans
it's not
are,
the first. I mean, there's a whole string of these scandals.
yeah. I mean, I feel for this child because no one should be victimized this way. I mean, if it's not the Anglican Church, it's the Catholic Church, which is incredibly well documented in priest abuse.
Yeah.
When you have a philosophy where you can't marry, sex is bad, all this other stuff, and the same thing, right? Moving people from place to place, just from parish to parish, just to avoid the accusation and not have to be held accountable. How can anyone trust? And that's one of the reasons I think I'll talk about the United States. There was just an article recently in the New York Times how 50 years ago, 80% of most Americans had a house of worship that they went to. Now that number is down to about 40%. It doesn't mean that people still aren't, let's say, identifying as religious, but the number of people who actually, depend on a place to go to practice their faith is way, way down. And one of the reasons, of course, is the continuous scandals across every religious faith.
Yeah. They like to
I think
use
in
it.
Ireland it's done tremendous damage to the Catholic Church, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That Ireland has become a much more secular society.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is progress.
Britain already is a very secular society, but we've got church schools, which you're not allowed to take your parents out of a school because you want a school that's not a church school. You don't have the right to do that. And we've got an established church.
Yeah, we've got bishops in the House of Lords. We've got
Yeah.
King Charles as the head of the church.
Yeah.
Right.
And in every local event or ceremony, the Church of England has priority.
Mm-hmm.
And prayers are said at the opening of parliamentary sessions.
And of many council sessions, although quite a lot of councils have sort of diversified.
But we're not as bad We're not as bad as some places, because I haven't, there's a video on this, but I haven't included it because I'm not sure where it is or when it is. But it's a mobile phone video. You know, it's portrait, not
Right.
not panoramic.
Landscape.
Not landscape.
Landscape, yeah. So it's recent. It's since the invention of those gadgets. And it's a slave market.
Mm.
And it's women being sold as sex slaves. And Islam permits Muslims in war against non-Muslims to take their women as captives and use them for sex. And in this video, there's a guy there with a, what do the Americans call them? It's not, we call it a loud hailer or something, a bullhorn, who's calling out, "Get your slave girls here," that sort of stuff. Because, you know, and they're quoting tracts of the Quran.
What country was this going on in, John?
Well, I have included it. I haven't been able to find out where.
Probably Texas.
Because Islamic State did that with the Yazidis.
Yeah, the Islamic State did that, definitely.
Yeah. And as I remember, it's also in the Old Testament.
Possibly.
You're allowed to do this. I'm pretty sure it's in the Old Testament, exactly the same thing.
Well, there's a whole section in Exodus 21, about slaves and how to regulate them and so forth.
Yes.
You can beat them as long as you don't beat them to death.
Yeah.
Within an inch of death. Yeah. So in the UK, a Muslim girl before Christmas was on video saying, "Do not celebrate Christmas. Do not decorate or put up a tree. Do not exchange gifts or anything related to Christmas. Christmas is not part of British culture. No one who's going to take part in Christmas, tell them to stop." Well, piss off, girl.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are to tell us what we should do?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think most Muslims wouldn't agree with that.
Yeah.
You have to be quite a sort of extreme Muslim, or devout. I don't know exactly what epithet.
I've got Muslim Facebook friends who wish me Merry Christmas.
Yeah. I think a lot of them, yeah.
But we have got in Europe quite a lot of what you might call high-profile foreign culture. Take a look at this. That is in Essen, Germany, and you could see the stalls of the Christian market in the background there. And the crowd are Syrian immigrants of an Islamic persuasion, and they're shouting, "Allah Akbar." Now that isn't traditional for Germany. I'm choosing my words as carefully as possible. and it's likely to inflame German nationalists.
Yeah.
Because it's so anti what you might call the normal culture of the country. So,
I saw that on social media, and I wonder if they're just Syrians celebrating the fall of Assad. and I don't know, but I wonder if that's the context. The flags they're flying are Syrian flags. A lot of Muslims shout Allah Akbar just as, hey, isn't life wonderful? So I'm not convinced it was if it was an Islamist demonstration in a Christmas market, I would be appalled by it. But if it was Syrians marching through the center of town to celebrate the fall of Assad, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I
think that's right. Yeah,
I agree.
Well, I'm sort of playing a devil's advocate here. I'm looking at it through the eyes of German nationalists, and I'm thinking, do we want this? That was a German market.
I mean, the reality is the more Islam and Islamism impinge on the minds and feelings of Europeans and North Americans, etc., the more there is this backlash.
Yes,
this Tommy Robinson style backlash, and it is inevitable. And the problem for us is to maintain some sort of balance and rational sort of critique of Islam without descending into some kind of gut feeling sort of prejudice.
Yes, which is being provoked by that the overt parading of the different culture. And if you're not convinced yet, take a look at this one.
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله والنبي رسول الله والنبي رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر.
It reminds me of a football crowd.
All right, they're a bit out of tune.
So, La ilaha illa Allah Muhammadu Rasulullah is just the statement of faith of Muslims. And in fact, it's something that I think all atheists and humanists need to learn off by heart. Because if you're confronted with a knife-wielding extremist Muslim, all you have to do is to say that. You immediately become a Muslim and you can't be killed.
Yeah.
Ooh, good luck with that.
Deadly serious. It's funny, but I'm deadly serious. That's what I do advise everyone to learn it.
Well, I hope it works. It sounds too trusting to me. If he's got a knife, I want a gun. Yeah. So that particular group, again, you can see those Syrians, all male, and what they were chanting was the same prayer, apparently, that Muhammad's army recited when they invaded Mecca and drove out the pre-Islamic population. So
some things just don't change.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting that the whole atmosphere is football chanting.
Yeah.
Give them a team to support. That's what I think.
That's
well, yes. Sport is okay. Get excited about that.
Manchester United.
What rules and umpires and referees? Yes, right. Much better than this rowdiness. Yeah, but going back to the US of A, this is a bit sad. Well, I won't go to that yet because I want to mention that in France, it's a 10th anniversary of the Charlie Hebdo.
Hebdo.
Yeah, the atrocity. 12 people were killed at the offices of the satirical magazine, and 5 more were killed in a subsequent anti-Semitic attack at a kosher supermarket. And so what's been happening now is 10 Jewish homes and businesses around Paris and a synagogue in the northern French city of Rouen have been defaced. and the police think that anti-Semitism is probably the motive behind it. So, again, if only there was somebody to point out that there's no evidence of these gods, and therefore there's no reason for you to have a religion. So stop it.
Yes. I mean, in Manchester, there's quite a Jewish population, and all their institutions, their synagogues and so forth, they have security guards outside them. It's terribly sad that it has to be the case.
Yeah.
That is the case.
I think the Muslims should learn from the Mormons. I mean, I'm no apologist for the Mormons, who you can criticize for a lot of things, but when the Book of Mormon was on at the theatre in London, which really skewers the Mormons. I mean, it's pretty.
I went to it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and what the Mormons did, rather than threatening it or firebombing it or putting demonstrations, they advertised on the back of the program. They said, "You've seen the musical, now read the book." And I think a bit of kudos for them for that.
Yeah. Typical capitalist Americans.
Yeah. But maybe the Muslims can learn something from them.
Yeah. Oh my God. Muslim
I don't think the Muslims have the same sense of humor, sadly.
Obviously not.
And not into capitalism. They don't borrow money or lend money, do they? They have an entirely different commercial business sense. It's weird. Anyway, staying with America, since we just mentioned it, this is very sad. Take a look.
Before we go any further, we want Sister Miles' daughter want to approach the church at this time in Jesus' name. Come on, Sister Miles.
Praise the Lord, saints.
Stand right in front of the congregation. Yeah, right in front of you. Don't touch that table.
I want to apologize to everybody in here because I am pregnant. I'm sorry, y'all. And I just hope that y'all all forgive me and for praying for me.
The church praying for you. We ain't gonna condone your sin now. We ain't gonna do that. Ain't no baby showers going on. That's what you lose out there. You have a baby out of wedlock, ain't no baby showers. And nobody.
So, I don't know what you think, but I feel for the poor girl. She's pregnant. It should be a cause for celebration. But they are condemning her, humiliating her, shaming, because it doesn't fit in with their prehistoric rules of virginity and marriage, which are all entirely false.
Too bad she didn't claim immaculate conception.
There you go. That's a workaround.
Correct. I am assuming that. Yeah, I may be
It's
wrong.
interesting that it was the girl and not the bloke who was apologizing.
It takes two to tango, doesn't it? So, but this is another version of misogyny, isn't it? Let's subject women. Yeah.
It's the Handmaid's Tale, basically. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So finally, in the UK, a victim has been forced to apologize for telling a group of school children aged 10 and 11 that Father Christmas is not real.
I think that's ridiculous. At the age of 10 or 11,
I
think they all know.
They're beginning to guess. They don't all know yet. I'm a humanist school speaker, and we are instructed. You are not allowed to tell children that Father Christmas doesn't exist. You can say God doesn't exist. You know, Jesus is dead. There's no angels. There's no life after death. But you're not allowed, because the complaints from parents will be horrendous if you tell them that Father Christmas doesn't exist.
Wow.
Up until what age? I mean, I'm a humanist school speaker, but it's a long time since I was trained, so I don't remember that.
Well, I think, you know, 15-year-olds, you can probably do it.
Yeah.
But 8-year-olds, no.
No. Well, I mean, I think most kids around about the age of 8 or 9 know.
My oldest daughter guessed when she was 10.
Yeah.
Really?
And my youngest daughter was probably about 11. I remember her friends, her 11-year-old friends, were kind of on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just in case.
I remember my father. My father told me, because he was the youngest by several years in his family of siblings, and they kept up the pretense and reinforced their parents' story of, you know, the coming down the chimney, the leaving of presents, and feeding them mince pies, leaving the mince pies and the beer or whatever, sherry, whatever. And so his siblings, his elder siblings, were keeping up this pretense until quite late on in his life, when he suddenly discovered that it was all false, and it was shattering to him, because who can you trust?
Right.
Right.
Well, humanist school speakers, I was at a training thing online not long ago, and they said, what you have to say to the kids is, just look at the evidence.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
There you go.
Most homes don't have a chimney. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
The evidence is that
not that evidence.
The presents appear, don't they? The presents appear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The evidence.
Look at your parents' Visa and MasterCard bill.
Yeah. The tooth fairy is
the evidence you need.
Yes. Well, this created such a storm, because pupils sobbed apparently during these comments that he was making during a religious education lesson at the Leon the Solent Junior School in Hampshire. One parent described his talk as absolutely disgusting. The Times reported it, and another parent said her daughter reckoned the vicar was mistaken and had lost the plot. The Anglican Diocese of Portsmouth said that the Reverend Dr. Paul Chamberlain accepted it was an error of judgment. And
what, to tell the truth?
Well, yes. And another 10-year-old pupil, also quoted in the Times, said some children gasped during the vicar's lesson, in which they were also told that parents ate the cookies left out for Santa. So they ended up having to apologize. So a diocese spokesperson said, "We understand that the Vicar of St. Faith's was leading an RE lesson, and after talking about the nativity story from the Bible, he made some comments about the existence of Father Christmas."
Maybe they'll move into another parish.
Is it a form of child abuse?
So he apologized unreservedly to the school, to the parents, and to the children, and the head teacher wrote to all the parents to explain it. Can you believe that?
I can readily believe it. I'm sure it's happened before as well.
Wow. So here's one mythology stomping on another mythology, being then called to apologize to the other mythology.
The other much more important mythology.
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes along with the tooth fairy as well.
Yes. Why don't everybody recognize that these are all childish stories?
Yeah.
They're in one category. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. You've been wonderful as usual. It's been wonderful meeting up with you all again.
Yes, after our Christmas break.
Yeah, I'm honored by your attendance.
Thank you. It's
Thank
good to be here.
you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.
clergy in
Russia was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the Kaliningrad.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that guy?